Welcome to all of our listeners and those of you who watch us on our YouTube channel, Rethinking Freedom. Thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of 2025. Today is January 6, 2025, and I am so excited about the guest that we have today. He is someone that I heard speak at a conference, and I immediately knew that I needed to introduce him to you, our audience. And I'm sure from your comments, once you listen to and engage with our show today, that you're going to agree with me as well. My name is Aya Fubaranelli. I am the host of Rethinking Freedom. This is not just a show, it's a movement. It is a movement to get us to rethink what it is that we think we know and to really start to identify what freedom looks like for us and what actions we are going to take to bring that about. So today we have a really interesting topic for you. It is decolonizing the African mind. And I want us to just start by understanding that Africa today, I would say, is not just the past. When you understand that almost everything you see today with human beings originated in Africa, whether you talk about science, or you talk about mathematics, you talk about the first writing systems, or even any of your forms of spirituality. We can trace all the Abrahamic religions back to the continent of Africa. I will say we are also the present. Definitely, if you look at all the minerals and resources that are being siphoned out of Africa, that power the rest of the world. And definitely when you look at the birth rates across the world, Africa is the future. Nonetheless, we are at a place where, despite Africa's abundant resources, our rich history, our boundless potential, the shadow of colonialism lingers. It manifests itself in our education systems, our governance, economic structures, and even the ways we see ourselves. From the erosion of our indigenous knowledge to the undervaluing of our cultures and traditions, the remnants of this psychological colonization perpetuates inequality, it perpetuates dependency and division amongst Africans on the continent and in the diaspora. But here's the truth as we rethink freedom. We are not bound by these chains forever. True liberation begins within by reclaiming our minds, celebrating our heritage, knowing our history, and redefining freedom on our own terms. And so today we have an incredible guest that I would like to introduce to you. His name is Kwabena Obeng Darko. He is an African entrepreneur, engineer, speaker, and author. His books include Perspective, How to Develop the Mindset to Start and Build Your Business. Many of us need that. If you just celebrated Kwanzaa with us, you know one of the principles is Ujamaa. It is collective economics. He also has a book titled Streamline, How to Teach Yourself Money. And he has 7 other books. I think you have 9 books in total. So this is a very busy man, not just busy, productive, making changes. And he's going to tell us more about what he does. He loves to share knowledge on African history and dignity, entrepreneurship, financial education, personal development, sales, systems, customer service, real estate. You can find all of this and more on his YouTube channel, Obeng Darko. And we'll have all the links for you to connect with him in the description, especially for those of you who come over to our YouTube channel to get this information. And of course, while you're there, please subscribe, please like, please share. Kwabena went to Opoku Ware School. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Agricultural Engineering from KNUST and a Master's of Science in Bioprocess Engineering from UCD. His business interests, as I mentioned earlier, include engineering, construction, fashion accessories, because, you know, one thing Africans are going to be is we're going to be fly, real estate, and so much more. He lives in Accra with his wife, Marie, and their 3 children, Ya, Awura, and Kwabena. Welcome, sir, to Rethinking Freedom.
Thank you. Thank you, Aya. Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad that you accepted the invitation. I was so excited when you did. So let's start by understanding the foundation. Colonialism didn't just take Africa's land. It didn't just kill off millions of people in addition to the 20 million plus that now are dispersed across the diaspora. It infiltrated our minds, our culture, and our sense of self. Can you explain what mental colonization means and how it continues to affect Africa today?
Thank you very much. Thank you. Mental colonization. You see, a man is what his mind processes. Mm-hmm. People cannot be anything more than what they know. And so if you want to control people, you control what gets to them. The knowledge available to the people is what they're expressing and working with. And so, as we know it, when the colonizers came here, they didn't just seek our physical resources, but they knew far more than the physical resources was the minds of our people. And they knew that for you to control and subjugate the people, once you take hold of their minds, once you develop a mechanism, a system to control their minds, you can control them forever. And so that is what and the way to control the next generation is go to how you educate them. Knowledge that liberates the people is light. And so when light gets into darkness, light brings understanding, illumination. And when you look at our continent and you look at the choices, the way we describe ourselves, a strong people who are strong don't use a lot of pessimism and negativity to describe their situation. People who are equipped to be free and to be self-sufficient, no matter the physical condition, speak differently. Because the weak person, one of the ways that we see people who are weak is the kind of words that they use. And when you hear many of our people talk, we are poor, we are diseased, we are underdeveloped, there are no opportunities on our continent. That is not a people who are equipped to be strong. So it's not so much the physical condition of the people, it's the mental state. And the mental state is not something that just happens. It's something that is designed, that is orchestrated, that is actually pushed on the people. And so our contact with the colonizers, with the Europeans and everybody who came here, was just to make sure that we are not a strong people so that they could use us for their prosperity. That's all. So everything that they set in place was to make sure that at least we weaken these people over time so that we could be in charge of everything that they are. And that is how if you look at the mechanisms that they use to keep slaves, it's the same. If you could keep people for 200 and something years, there was something that you made sure that they were allowed to see and they were not allowed to see. And so colonization is just information that you give to the people to subjugate them, to control them, so that they can look only up to you as the savior, as the one who has the wisdom, as the one who has the wealth, as the one that they can trust and love. And that's what you see on the continent. And so when you see the words that we use of ourselves, even our beautiful women, you look at how we dress, look at the names that we pick, look at how we are very much happy to get visa, to get out of our blessed countries, and even look at how we want to just work for others than ownership. It means that something really happened somewhere. And it's not the story of Africa, because Ghana Empire ran over 1,000 years. With millions of people, if they were not civilized, if they were not intelligent, if they were not self-sufficient, they could not run that. So how come after that, the people who came are people who are now seeing themselves as unless somebody gives them aid, unless they go to work somewhere, they cannot live. It's as a result of colonization. So it's a mechanism designed to make sure that the people think in a particular way by allowing a certain level of knowledge to get to them, or information to get to them.
You are in Ghana, I am here in the United States of America, and I think that our listeners, wherever they are in the world, can relate to this. I know that here in the United States, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who is the father of Black History Month, wrote a book called The Miseducation of the Negro. And in it, he clearly says exactly what you said. Once you control a person's mind, you control everything about them. You don't even have to be physically present with them, and they will still do what you've trained them to do. And so if you've trained them to think of themselves as inferior, that is how they will act. And, you know, I have children who are teenagers and young adults, and there's all this music that they're listening to now. And sometimes they call me, actually, a lot of times they call me old-fashioned, but I'm always challenging them on the words, the lyrics, and the music they're listening to, because there's no other group of people that I'm aware of who use such derogatory words and terms. So when you talked about the language we use, how we describe ourselves, and you're thinking, oh, it's to a nice beat, it's okay, I can dance to this, but you're really the entire time denigrating and beating yourself down and programming yourself to be the thing that they want you to be, which is just to be able to serve, as opposed to, as you were saying, own and be your own person and create your own freedom on your terms. And then something you said just cut me to my heart when you said they teach us who to trust and who to love. And so you have a system where we distrust ourselves and trust the people who have pillaged our lands and who continue to wreak devastation on us. That is a crazy mindset. And this, I would say, is done not just through the quote unquote formal education, which I'd like you to talk a little bit more about your education in Ghana, but also through religion. So can you expound a little bit more on that?
Yes. So in Ghana, okay, so I was born into an Akan family, Asante specifically. We are matrilineal, so you trace your tribe, so to say, from your mother's line. So both my parents are Akans, both my parents are Asantes. You will speak the language, you speak P at home, but when they decide to send you to school, they will start to teach you another language. Now, if you look at the other people, for instance, if somebody is in England and it's English and is going to school, the language that the mother is speaking is the same language they are using in school. If you see an Arab man, the same Arabic is being used at home and the same in school. If you look at the Chinese, the same Chinese is being used at home and he goes to school. So the intelligence is in flow. The culture is in flow. We have a different situation where your language, everything that you know before 5, 6, 7 years, before you went to school, once you go to school now, you are going to learn a whole different language and for them to teach you in that language. So there's a cut of intelligence.
Yes.
Just by the switch of language.
There is a disconnect. Yes.
There's a disconnect. Yes. And as a matter of fact, what is education? Education is just equipping people to become enough to solve their problems. It's not to think and speak in English. But you go through school.
You know what? You need to say that again. So often we are judging people's intelligence by their ability to speak the colonizer's language.
That's right. And which is not. No language is better than the other. One is used more, so you will see it everywhere. The other one is probably not used more. But if I had to speak P, that stays with me forever. So if you really want to speak to me, you speak to me in that language because I'll connect with that. Even at this level that I speak the so-called English, in my thought processes, I'm still translating in the first language that I was born to speak, the first language, my mother's tongue. So I think in that. And as a matter of fact, I think in that culture. So if I speak English and the Englishman is speaking his English, we are not understanding the same English the same way. So once we have not been able to do that, it means that you are training the people to see themselves as what they have is not enough. So when I go to school, my name is also, I have to be given an English name as well. As a matter of fact, some of the churches will baptize you or will not baptize you until you take a name other than the African name that I was given. And so you see that almost everything that we have is not enough. Our language is not enough. Our name is not enough. The way we dress is not. If you go through the street in Ghana and you see anybody in suit and tie speaking English, they have gone to school. They have become another person.
Let me tell you, as a young girl in Nigeria, I didn't necessarily have the words, but it always baffled me to see people sweating profusely, wearing a 3-piece suit in the hot African sun to be what? Or worse, for me anyway, as a lawyer, every time I see African lawyers with those stupid wigs on their head that they import, that even in England, many of the lawyers don't wear anymore except for ceremonial, events and things. But in Africa, in Nigeria, these lawyers have, in their times I've brought it up, and they are absolutely livid at me for questioning their right to wear these wigs. And I said, is that not a symbol of colonial mentality? That's crazy.
Absolutely. It is. And then we see when you program the mind in a particular way, it's very much difficult to reprogram it. And a lot of our lawyers, a lot of our doctors, a lot of our engineers really think as the colonizers, sad to say. And Africa's problem is the minds in leadership and how they think. Africa will not progress until we've been able to get a certain level of the minds in leadership who think against what they were taught.
So how do we accomplish this? Because in my father's time, there were certain people who were identified as being bright by the missionaries, the colonizers, whatever. They took those people. That was the first wave of the African brain drain. Well, we actually might say it's the second wave, because the first wave was the Ma'afa, the slave trade, if you will. Yeah. I don't call it a trade. It was the kidnapping, the genocide of my people. The second wave would have been right before
independence,
quote unquote independence, and shortly after that, when they were identifying the middle managers that they were going to train, quote unquote, abroad, and then bring back to Africa to run things in their stead. They're still running things. It's just the black faces now running it. So my father was part of that brain drain initially. He ultimately dealt with so much discrimination in England, in Canada, and in the United States, and eventually made the decision to move his family back to Nigeria. And I ended up going to elementary school and secondary school in Nigeria as well. But what I'm seeing today is some European countries very aggressively recruiting our doctors, our nurses, teachers, engineers, architects to come over to their countries to fulfill the needs that they have. Meanwhile, our countries on the continent do not have the people that we should have, that, who have been educated to provide services. So even within my own family, of course, I'm here in the US, but I have nieces and nephews, brilliant young people, some of them master's degrees, all architects, all that, and they have now moved to Canada because Canada is very aggressively recruiting people. Are you seeing the same thing happening in Ghana where you are?
Same. Nurses, doctors, teachers, engineers. They say that they want to go. You see, the programming is so heavy. They watch TV and they see Canada, all these nice buildings. They see England, America. If you have never been there, many of them would want to see that, would want to experience that. Because you see, even if you go to church, the God picture or Jesus picture there, who has ever seen Jesus? So why should we in Africa have a Jesus that we all have not seen as a white man? The angels that we have all not seen cannot be African. They have to be a white person. The God that we have all not seen has to be a European. It's not this is a creation. It's a creation to make a people look up to certain people. And if you really study the foundation of the European wealth is based on race. Sacrifice one race for us. That's it. Sacrifice one race, let them become slaves, use their resources. And so that process that is set in place has not changed. The young man in Ghana who thinks that he's a doctor in Ghana, so when he goes to Canada, he will be accepted fully in that system. He is oblivious to the fact that that system sacrificed him. So that system is still not ready to treat him as a full human being. He doesn't know that. He really, when you are here, and because of the education that you are given, as a matter of fact, if your sense of history is weak, you really don't have an education.
That is
you just don't know.
Right.
And that's what we are going through. The kind of a history that they taught us in our schools, that history is not enough for any people to stand up. A people's strength is equally measured by the strength of the history that they know about themselves. And so if the history is weak, you can always subdue those people. It doesn't matter whether they know international law or thermodynamics or calculus. Those things don't, you can't identify yourself with calculus. Like, identify yourself with the sense of history that they taught you. You are talking of your father and the community you come from. That's history. It's whenever they mention, you can, that comes straight from you. That, okay, my parents come from here. This is their tribe. This is the language. This is what my parents went through. That kind of information gives you an identity. If a people don't have strong information in terms of who they are, and they can only talk of their history from 1957 or from Portuguese coming to Ghana or building Mena Castle, slavery and colonization, those people are weak. And that's why they will continue to wear the wigs, because then they can't question anything beyond what was created for them to see. So he's here in Ghana, but his mind is not so much solid because the sense of history is not there. A lot of these great tribes or race, they will tell you, not 1,000-year history, not 2,000-year history. As a matter of fact, the Chinese are telling you 5,000-year history. The African has 10,000 or more year history that he must know. And if the African does not know that kind of history, that African becomes weak. Because the kind of history that we've been told over the last 500 years is the history that has always put the African down. And as a matter of fact, is a history that has made the African as not full human being. The Constitution of America, the first one that they wrote, Africans were not considered as human beings.
We're not considered.
Not much.
Three-fifths of a human being. Yes.
That's right. And so if that Constitution, which was so-called amended, but the structures and the thought processes of the creators have not changed. And that's why we still find it difficult to bring a major shift to them, because we are not seen as humans. And so our people, whether we like it or not, many of our people without the right information don't really see themselves as full human beings. And that's why the young man in Ghana would want to go through the desert, and you tell him that you can die, and he says that it doesn't matter. Because for him, his life is worthless until he gets to Italy. That's why the doctor, with all that he does here, he doesn't, as a matter of fact, you don't see yourself as full human beings until you connect yourself to what you can do to bring better life to other human beings. And when your decisions and choices only center around your interests and your comfort, you have not developed fully. And so if you see the choices of
and that is what you're seeing with so many
the contract, I will give it to the...
No, please go ahead.
Yes. Yes, and so you see the choices of the politician, where he wants to take the money and give the contract to the foreigner because it's not mature. His sense of history is weak. He thinks that his impact or his influence or his success will come from the money that he only has to take, because the sense of history is not there. And it's because of the education that he was given, which actually deny his very existence. So that kind of education given to him, because he's so weak, now he wants to stand in the sun. It's raining. He's still in the queue, waiting for visa to get to Canada. And he's saying that he's struggling in Ghana, but he's paid $20,000 to get to Canada. How many Canadians without credit card and mortgage and car loans can cough out $20,000? They don't have it, but we have it here, and we still think that we are poor. It's more than that. It's the information that we have about ourselves and about the world as well.
I hope that people are taking notes and they come back and re-listen to this, because there's so many important things that you are saying that should really get us to examine, what is it that I think I know, and where did I come from? Where did it come from? And who is it serving? So I do want to reference a book. It's called Decolonizing the Mind by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. He's from Kenya and initially wrote under the name James Wathiongo because, like so many people, to go to school required you to take on a name by the colonizer. Now we willingly do it. I see, people across the continent with children's names Sheila and Kelly and Grace and Mercedes and all that. And I said, what happened to our indigenous names? But this is what he says in this book. He says, but the biggest weapon wielded and actually daily unleashed by imperialism against the collective defiance is the cultural bomb. The effect of a cultural bomb is to annihilate a people's belief in their names, in their languages, in their environment, in their heritage of struggle, in their unity, in their capacity, and ultimately in themselves. It makes them see their past as one wasteland of non-achievement, and it makes them want to distance themselves from that wasteland. So, how do we turn this around? How do we turn this around? Because when you were telling me that you think in your mother's tongue, and then in your head you're translated into English, there are times when, even though I studied here in the United States, I am thinking in a different language, and then I'm trying to find the words in English, which somebody might say, oh, does she not know what she's talking about? No, I'm trying to make this connection. But what I'm seeing now are Africans who don't speak any African language at all. And certainly for those of us who are out here in the diaspora, many of us are not teaching our children the languages, and our children may actually even be resistant to learning the languages, again, because of this concept, this erroneous concept of Africa. So how do we begin to change this? And if you don't mind even going into some of the things that you're doing as an engineer who could go get a visa and go somewhere else, but you are choosing to stay in Ghana. How do we change this? What do we need to be doing differently?
All right. You see, look at the prominent and big churches in Nigeria, in Ghana. They all speak English. And as a matter of fact, they say that they are international and global churches. Now, a lot of our people are in these institutions. One of the biggest pushback, if you want, has come from these modern day denominations, where their sense of their Africanness has been so weak that they think the faith is the culture. So they have practiced their Christianity.
Please repeat that again so that people really catch that. You said their faith.
So they think that their faith is their culture. And so when they adapt the Christianity, so-called Christianity from the Europeans, now they have to wear suit and tie, speak English. Some of them even do their hair so that their hair texture will look like the European. And those people are the ones who are giving their children all these grandiose English names, And they have really, over the last 50 years, have done a lot of damages to the African heritage, African sense of identity. And it's not only in Nigeria, it's in Ghana as well. The Pentecostal charismatic. All denominations did the same. They planted the seed. The Catholics, the Basel, the Methodists, they did that the same thing because they came with the European culture. They came with the European identity. And what we don't know is that even though they came with some Bible, they came to dominate. And they really did not. That's what they came to do. And so
Desmond Tutu says, they came with the Bible, told us to close our eyes and pray. We closed our eyes and prayed. And when we opened our eyes, we had the Bible and they had the land.
Yes. And that's what they have done. And so now you have a lot of these educated people, those who say that our children don't speak the local language. It's because when we go to school, we are constantly being told to become polished and civilized. And that means that become like the colonizer. You go to church on Sundays, it's the same. Go to any small church in any village in Africa. The pastor is not so much educated, but he's speaking English with 3 members. And then they are translating that. And so constantly there's a cultural annihilation. And they think, and they don't see any worth in our heritage. And at the same time, they are looking at how do we lift our people from poverty and all these situations. You cannot lift the people up until they see themselves as confident and capable and complete. And where else do they see themselves as capable and complete except in the identity? The culture, any people who are strong and able to fight and stand up is because they believe in themselves and they believe in their heritage, they believe in their language, they believe in their culture. If you cut the root of the tree is nothing. And the culture is the protection. The culture is the education system. The culture is everything that protects the people from destruction. And what we have seen is that they've been able to dissociate. That's why they attack the culture.
So
that's why the colonizers.
So what you're saying is, because there's lots of information out there about we need investors, we need foreign investors into Africa, we need more money to come into Africa to build up the infrastructure and all of that. You're saying that's not really the main thing.
No, that's not.
To change the trajectory of Africa and get back to wholeness.
That's right. You see, Africa does not need investors to develop. Africa needs Africans who are confident and knowledgeable in their African heritage to stand up, because the resources are here. Africa does not need money from anywhere. It's because they told us that we're not enough. That's all. That's why any young man in Nigeria, in Ghana, if they get this kind of information, you don't give them any capital to start, they will start and jump and build something. Go back 10 years, they have built an industry. Because everywhere that you plant anything, it germinates. You go anywhere, you can have water. There are people everywhere. These are the resources. The only problem is the mental processes, the conditioning, the information that we have. We live in wealth. They don't live in wealth. That's why they were looking for investors. We live. So the language that Africa needs investment is a lie. Africa needs confident, proud, courageous Africans to just lift what they have and build. So we will wait forever when our minds are on people should come from somewhere to come and develop us. That's a strategy. It's not true. To come and save us. It's not so much the truth. And that's what we do with our programs, many of our radio programs, and we actually do them in P. We don't do them in English. I do English. Even my channel, when I started, I was speaking English. Then we switched to the language, because I think the very things that we need to open the minds of our people should not be in English.
I agree.
It should be in the language that our people understand.
I agree.
Yes, and now we teach finance, we teach business, we teach thought processes, we teach personal development, the importance of our history, identity in our language. And I can tell you that young men in villages, in towns, there are so many of our people who have come from abroad to stay and live in Ghana now, because now they see themselves as a different people. And so you can't change a people's life until they start to see themselves differently. And the information to make sure that they are confident, because the minds, all that you need is courage and knowledge to build. And that knowledge or that courage will never come if they don't know who they are, they don't know their history. And so that's what the African needs. Once the African gets that, they can look back, because their eyes will start to open. So I've heard so many people just call us to say that, listen, there was this man in England and somebody showed him some of our videos. He said, now I see myself as a human being. I've never seen myself like that before. Wow. A lot of our people weep within. They question, even if they are human beings. I tell you, based on the information that we have and the European hegemony that we live in, many Africans, without this knowledge, don't see themselves as human beings. And that was the design. The design was that you will never see yourself as a full human being. Mm-hmm. And many of our people without this information don't see themselves as full human beings. They even think that God cursed us.
Well, let me share this quote from a mentor of mine. He's now an ancestor, John Henry Clark, and he said this: "My main point here is that if you are the child of God and God is a part of you, then in your imagination, God is supposed to look like you. And when you accept a picture of the deity assigned to you by another people, you become the spiritual prisoners of that other people."
Absolutely. Don't you see that confusion everywhere? Especially on the continent. People in
Yeah.
seat and tie lifting their hands to God to come and change their finances for them.
What? No, sir. Giving their finances to the church, giving their finances, the little they have to the church,
Yes.
and then saying, "But God, you will bless and multiply
Me,
this."
that's right. And yes,
While the pastor drives off in his latest car or buys another
absolutely.
jet plane. Yes.
Yes. Because you can only do that to a people who don't know themselves.
Mm.
And so they are not able to question the very system that's enslaving them.
So
And so they are,
how do I know you're doing things, and I'm so glad, and somebody else is going to hear this and also do this in other countries as well. And for those of you who are listening who are in the diaspora, all of this still pertains. How are you being mentally enslaved where you are, and what are the ways to reconnect to your identity, to remember? Ayikwa Ama has a book called Remembering the Dismembered Continent. And his whole goal with all of his books, as I've read them, is to get African people, wherever we are in the world, to reconnect to our memory of who we are and not who we have now been told that we are. So there are people who are going to watch this who are going to say, yes, I have some knowledge and I need to start offering this to others in our language. I know that in the school that we've adopted in Opobo, we are hiring an Ibani teacher. We've already been doing Ibani lessons in the library that we started, because Ibani is the language of the people there that was going extinct because we weren't speaking it. And so we're reintroducing it, and we're saying we want to start at the nursery and elementary levels, because there is power in language. There's power in words. When you talked about going to school and we're learning about scientists and philosophers who don't look like us, we actually have philosophy embedded in our language.
That's right.
But and many of our philosophies, our proverbs, if you will, I know that when I try to translate them from an indigenous language to English, they don't make a lot of sense. If I say, so in Igbo, if I say "Ana hill to Lensin," also, if I try to translate that to English, it's like you can't. I'm trying to do the translation in my head now. Literal translation would be, you can't outrun your buttocks. And someone will look at me and say, what is that? What does that mean? But in our language, when I hear it, I understand the meaning, which is wherever you go, there you are. You cannot run past who you are. You've got to work on you first, because no matter where you go to,
you will show up.
You will you will meet yourself there.
That's right.
But when you don't speak the language, you miss out on our own philosophies, our own ways of being. When we talk about, in Kenya, you talk about Ubuntu, and you talk about because of you are, I am. It's a different way of seeing the world. There's another saying, if the hawk perches, if the dove perches, and the one that says the other one shouldn't perch, let their wing break. The idea that we should work together, that there should be unity, but it's so hard to translate those kind of things in English. And so as I look at the continent, and I think we're at a really pivotal place, there are books being written about Africa being China's second continent. We're constantly looking outside of ourselves. What are some practical things that someone who's listening now, if they're on the continent, what are some practical things they can start doing to help us reshape our minds? If they're outside of the continent, what are some practical things that they can start doing?
Some of the things that I've learned, obviously as engineering student, the history was absent.
Yes.
Even those who were studying history were studying, Greek history. Aristotle
Isn't
and all
that
those.
crazy?
It's
When I
crazy.
went to school in Nigeria, we read more Shakespeare than we
Yes.
read indigenous Nigerian
Yes.
or African writers.
Yes. It's because the education is still colonial. And so I would say that in the now that we have technology, so especially, I think there's a lot that has changed since 2020. And it's because of the spread of social media. So whatever that we have, whatever that we know, now there's a tool, at least, for us to just let whatever we know out. There are African historians like Dr. Henry Clark that you mentioned, or Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's books, or
Yes.
Dr. Molefi Asante. All these great minds, their books are now on YouTube, on the internet. Let's get them. Nobody will teach us that history. The history that they are teaching us cannot free us. That history will make sure that we continue to be servants and slaves. The history that will free us is the history that the Africans who love Africa have written. And that history, I think, once you get them, and you don't have to master, just a little start to teach. Because many of our people, independent of their professional level of education, don't know. And you can see those in our choices. So we have prominent people in politics, in religion, in everywhere, in science labs, who are asking questions. Where is the solution for Africa? The solution is in us repairing the minds of our people. And that will come from our little knowledge that we have about history. So any little that you know, make sure that you teach somebody.
So
You don't have to.
start with the history and teach
That's
someone
it.
the history.
Yes, teach. Yes, learn it yourself. Read. Just take time, maybe 30 minutes every week. African history beyond slavery and colonization. You'll be shocked. You'll be shocked how much you know, because those kind of knowledge, we live in them. We just not put them. I mean, they are not in constructive form, but we all know them, and we are all asking these questions. What is wrong? What is wrong? That's why there's this carpenter who follows what we do. And now he's reading history books, and he calls me to show me what he has found.
Wow.
He's a carpenter.
Wow.
He's not a graduate.
Wow.
So every one of us, once we can read and write, and it doesn't have to even be in English, any other African language, just teach, learn. So this young man listens to us and he teaches what we learn, what we teach. In Tamale, that's the northern part of Ghana, in the Dagwani, which is the Dagomba language. So every one of us, wherever we are, whether it's Swahili, because it's the same problem for almost everyone, all of us.
It is.
And it's not only Africans on the continent. It's in Jamaica.
Yes.
It's in America. It's in Brazil. Everywhere. The history that will empower us, they have deliberately questioned that. And so many of our people don't think that we ever did anything. And the moment you start to find out, you start to put the lines together, you see that, no, these people have tricked us. And you now see that probably you are enslaving for no good cause for them. And so if you're a doctor, you start to think twice. You start to say that, no, then I have to go back and do something for my people. I think that the moment anybody gets this kind of knowledge, you become sober. You become humane. You start to connect with who you really are. And when you come, you will be selfless and not lift yourself above us. Any African who lifts himself above the other Africans and tells us that the standard is the American standard, is the British standard, is an African who does not know who he is. Once you know who you are, you start to see the wisdom in our culture, in our language, in our heritage, and you start to see the need to learn. Sometimes I tell the Africans that you don't come here to say that I'm coming to help Africa. Africa does not need your help.
I'm so glad that you said that. I've talked to quite a few Africans here in the United States who, and when I say Africans, I'm saying anyone who is of African descent who are planning to repatriate, to go back to Africa. And I say, but you know what? Don't come with the same mindsets that some people came with when they moved back to Liberia, where it's because of your proximity to whiteness, you feel like you have something, you're better than the indigenous people, and you're going to come and save them. You're going to come and help them. actually Africa has a whole lot to teach the world, and
That's right.
it's constantly doing so, even though we don't get the credit.
That's right. And so once you come to say, I'm coming to learn, you will learn. As a matter of fact, you come to feed. You go to your mother to feed. You know, of course, there will be something that you will do, but you do it with some kind of sobriety.
Yes.
Not with arrogance.
Yes.
And not with and everything that we do, if you come without the history and the consciousness, you see, there's the difference between the culture and the consciousness. The consciousness is where you are equipped with data beyond what the colonizers have pushed on us. As in, that's why somebody who's schooled in America, for instance, will come to Ghana and say that, you know, I know in America this is it, and they're always talking like that, as if the other one who went to school here does not know much. And of course, the other one who went to school here, if he's not equipped, will still, you know, lower themselves and look up to this other. Meanwhile, you have lived here. You have things that have worked. There's something that you know that the other person coming does not know. So when I go to another environment, I don't go there to teach them. I go there to learn. But unfortunately, the colonization will make you come here and say that even though you have not stayed here and learned anything, but you have the master key to bring solutions. And that's why you see a lot of these IMF and UN, all these organizations trying to say that we want to go and help the Africans to structure the economy. 50 years, you have not been able to do it because you can't do it. It takes the knowledge on the ground to bring the solutions. You know, so once you come with respect and trust and love and dignity, then we can work together. But if you come to say that I know everything, and you don't know how to, that's why many people come here to do business and they go back. Because they think that we don't know anything. And they think that the standard should be one way. It should be the American standard. It should be the Canadian standard. No. And so once you pay attention to the wisdom that we have here, you will know that, listen, if the kind of mechanisms that they have put on the way of Africa, if those mechanisms were not there, Africa would develop. Africa's problem is not.
Can you please say more? Can you please say more about that? Yes.
Yes, it's not corrupt leadership. Look at America, for instance. If Africa, let's say, switch it. If Africa, you know, had FBI, CIA, these embassies all over, with their military,
with the military bases all across Africa.
That's it. If those things were in America, you think America will move? If you haven't had over 300 years of free labor and free intelligence. And so if you switch it on Africa, you'll be patient. We have our challenges, no doubt about that. But if you really, really lift the load, Africa will just grow. So it's not
but they are not going to willingly lift that load.
That's right. So that's why the Africans
are not going to willingly lift that load. And something else, I believe it was John Henry Clark, or maybe it was Malcolm X who would say this, is a people that will give their children to their oppressors to educate are not a very smart people. And that's essentially what we do. I was just talking to a friend who was thinking she lives on the continent, and she wants to bring her preteen children and put them in a boarding school here in the US. And I said, I can't tell you what to do, but if you ask me my opinion, please do not do that to your children. They are going to come into an environment that is going to make them feel that they're less than. And it doesn't matter if they get all the A's in the world and acquire all this other knowledge. If they are infected with an anti-Black virus, it will cripple them for life.
Yeah.
So leave them where they are. Let them grow and train up where they are. I went to secondary school in Nigeria, and when I came here, I was actually further ahead than most of my American peers because there was a level of excellence that was required of me by my African teachers.
That's
and
right.
When I came to this country, they did not expect me to be smart. They did not expect me to excel. Yes. And I actually had to fight through that. But if I did not have the grounding that I had in my humanity and in my ability to excel, that I was an intelligent person, it would have been fairly easy into their notion of who I am and what I'm capable of.
Yeah. It's true. And you know that a lot of these parents don't have this kind of level of intelligence or level of information.
Yes.
So they just think that the child will come here and be a medical doctor and that's enough. No. You can't even actually live your fulfillment and peace without this kind of information. And so that's why you can see prominent Africans in America, in all these countries. When they speak, you can see that they are miserable within, in spite of all the professional success that they've achieved. They're not proud of where they come from.
And we've built little. We work for others.
Yeah, you see? And so the information is so key. And we have to find a way to make sure that
so you were making the distinction between consciousness and culture, and I interrupted you. I apologize.
All right. So the consciousness is built on your sense of history, the depth of your history, so that you can know that your philosophers will not be Greeks. Your philosophers will be the Africans before the Greeks. Mm-hmm. And the very examples that you say in science and management, in every other field, in law, you will see that you look for the Africans and their wisdom.
Yes.
Those will be your reference point. You can compare with others, but you will not speak only from their world. Yes. You speak from your world as well, because the Chinese man is speaking from his world.
Yes.
The prominent, proud, confident Chinese diplomat is speaking with that level of intelligence. Yes. Pick the other African who has not studied anything, and the words that will come from their mouth will be, they will quote all these other great but non-Africans, because the consciousness is not there, even though it's educated. The culture is really who we are, the beauty, and we cannot build until we understand the culture of our people, our way of life. But the culture, just as you can pick any young man in Ghana and he knows a certain level of Ghanaian culture, but for him to get the consciousness, that will mean that he has to intentionally go and study the history.
So when you talk about studying the history, are there any particular books that you would recommend to anyone who's watching or listening to us right now?
Yes. There is a History of Africa by Molefi, Professor Molefi Asante. I think it's a great book. Yes. All of us should get it and read it. All of us. The ones that I have read, there is a let me see, Chancellor Williams' book.
Chancellor Williams, The Destruction of the Black Civilization. Yes.
And there is another one that I read. There is this preacher in America that I read his book, Race, Religion, and Racism. Frederick Casey Price.
Okay, haven't heard of him, but I will look that up. That's why we do this.
Intense study on race, on racism, and on religion. We should study it. Okay. There are other books, my friend. Obi is The Rebirth of the African Consciousness. He's a young Nigerian. Obi Ayo, his book is very intense. It's a good book. There are so many other books that, but
yes, I often point people to. I'm looking at one. We're looking at a couple now. Pre-colonial Africa, by Cheikh Anta Diop. If you definitely want to go study Cheikh Anta Diop, anything by Ayikwe Ama, I would definitely recommend. There's another book that I have here with me by Chinwezu, Decolonizing the African Mind.
That's right.
And since you kept mentioning Molefi Asante, I'd actually pulled this off my shelf. This is called The African Intellectual Heritage, a book of sources. And Molefi Kete Asante is one of the
that's right,
the authors on this as well.
Yes, he's a great man. And a lot of their videos on YouTube, even if they don't like reading, they should just go to YouTube. Dr. Ronoko
Rashidi, Dr. Ben Yohanan, John Henry Clark. Yes.
Yeah. I think those are the information that we should have had.
Yes.
We should have had when we were growing up. And we didn't. And so it's not complex. It's not so just watch one or two, listen to one or two. You will see that there's so much that they have hidden from you that you don't know. The Asantes in 1900 said that they were not going to allow the colonizers to educate their children. Asante fought all this while from the 16th or 17th century up to the 19th or the 20th century. 1900, they said no.
And I have to apologize. We only have a few minutes, but I have to apologize that my people, under the leadership of King Jaja of Opobo, were actually convinced to go and fight with the British against the Ashantis. So
Yes.
my apologies, but this is where that lack of consciousness and that division comes into play. Now, of course, after they helped the British defeat the Ashantis, it turns around that King Jaja became a thorn in their flesh because he was striving for independence. Did not want to use middlemen who were siphoning off quote unquote profits. And so they ended up kidnapping him from Opobo, taking him to Ghana. They had their own courtroom with just their own judges and their own lawyers. They found him guilty and they deported him. And he ended up dying. He was taken to the Caribbean, and on his way back, supposedly, he died. There's also... So some people argue he was poisoned before he could come back. So I apologize for the role that my people played.
It's not only your people. Before they could overcome, they brought some from almost everywhere.
Yes, they did.
And then even some other Ghanaian, tribes.
Yes.
All had to come together to make sure that. And I was listening to somebody talk. A British man talk, and the way they speak their history. That's why the African must learn their history. They will always speak as if slavery and colonization didn't contribute to anything that they have become.
Exactly.
That is so disheartening. They
so
trivialize the impact.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was going to say we only have a few minutes left, and I have to ask you these two questions, if you could answer them quickly. One is, so what gives you hope for Africa's future? Given the issues, the lack of consciousness that is so rampant, unfortunately, across the continent, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that we have a young generation, and it took them 400 and something years to do what they did, and they continue to do. The good thing is that we are being enlightened, and our population is still, on the good side. So give us 50, 100 years. A lot of us will come up. You will not just get 1, 2, 3 committed, intelligent Africans. You get millions, and that will spark what we are looking for. They will not everything that has beginning has an end. It will not be forever, and so that's why we have to look. And so if you are short-sighted, we say that there is no hope. But if you think beyond 50, 100 years, we see that it will be a whole different thing.
Thank you for that.
If you look at London now, it's changing. Look at New York. It's changing. Can you add 50, 100 years to it?
Yeah.
There are more people with our skin color than there are more with the colonizers. They're just about 5-10% of the West population. And
they are only 10% of the world's population. Yes.
That's right. And so in 100, 200 years, it will not be the same.
And we need to hold on to that.
Yes.
So one last question for you. For those of you here in the US, here's a book that I'm going to offer you. It's called Lies My Teacher Told Me, Everything Your American History Textbook Got Wrong. There's a reason why they're banning books in the United States of America. They don't want you to know the real history, because then you can be controlled in a certain way. So, sir, I always ask all my guests this question. If you can answer it in about 30 to 45 seconds, that would be great. How do you define freedom?
Freedom is who you are. It's who you are. It's being who you are, expressing your greatness. Without it, you can't live to your fullest potential. So freedom is actually something that you have to become. It's a desire. Wow. And it's the definition of worth. That's freedom.
Freedom is the definition of wealth. Thank you so much. I know this has been an enriching time for all of you, because it has been for me. I'm going to go back and listen to this. I'm so glad we are connected. I will be watching your channel. I want to thank all of our listeners and all of our viewers. Please like, subscribe, share the channel. Please go visit his channel as well. Support the great work that he's doing, and go pick up a book and read. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you, sir, for being our guest today.
Thank you, Aya. Thank you. Thank you.